Thank you for joining today. So we have released capabilities to ensure that your cloud applications can be resilient with an automated recovery simulations. So if you think about application resilience and particularly cloud application resilience, it relies on how many tests you typically conduct. But what happens really is that organizations do not do enough recovery tests because, first of all, it's a lack of time, maybe complexity, expensive nature of these tests, and also lack of skill. So if you think about it, drilling down into the details of it, complexity could mean that there are many moving parts in an application environment, an application server, storage, network, security, etc., etc. And by the time you create a DR plan to test your application environment, it's already outdated because somebody changed a firewall, somebody changed a route in your environment, and also you don't know what's really changed in your production environment. You have to keep up with it. That is the complexity of kind of managing and maintaining it every time. The second aspect is the cost. Let's say in the legacy data center world, the cost of DR data centers is huge. So people never really went for secondary data centers unless it's absolutely necessary. But when you go to the cloud, cloud applications run on shared infrastructure. So it's important for you to run these tests pretty often to make sure that in the case of failure, things are all right. It's not like you're every day there is a pandemic. Pandemic comes in every 100 years or something like that. So all it takes is just one time event, but aren't you supposed to be prepared for it? On the other hand, every additional DR test, even if you outsource that DR activity to a third-party provider, it costs more money. Sometimes these additional tests could come in anywhere between 30 to 50K per test. And the cost of labor associated with it on your side as well as the DR provider side. Cost of recovery of the orchestration software itself. So you may have to buy additional software to make sure that your recoveries can be orchestrated. And time and skills are shortage. If you look at the time it takes to really put together all these activities, it could be that it could be a project. It could take days, weeks, depending on the application, or even months. And the teams are always busy with production environments. How do you really convince these teams, including your application team, sometimes your server storage network, or even within your cloud application environments, cloud ops teams, could be spread out. Could be a VPC team, could be your application environment team specific to your particular application, right? Skills shortage. Lack of application environment itself application environment knowledge itself is a big problem because when you have especially distributed applications, it's very difficult to understand what are the moving parts in an application. How does this particular set of microservices come up when they are recovered and in the case of a failure. Lack of cloud skills. There's a general lack of cloud skills, particularly an advanced knowledge of the environments and how the infrastructure as code is put together if organizations really went for this level of infrastructure as code, and also the level at which they can maintain version all of that infrastructure in a disciplined way. And the lack of backup and DR systems. Most of the time the backup systems are different from the DR systems and the orchestration systems. So the lack of an understanding and the use and the skill to use all of these systems together to really test your resilience becomes really challenging for organizations, and because of which they don't even run. So if you do not run these tests, you do not have application resilience. Are you sure your applications are really protected? And that's why we have introduced this capability. And in Appranix, it is as simple as adding a simulation policy to your cloud assemblies. So let's take a look. All you have to do is to go to your Appranix login. You log in, get to your cloud application resilience page, and assuming that you have many assemblies, you can click one of your assemblies, in this particular case, an OpenEMR running on Google Cloud. You can see how many resources are protected in those environments. And you have your protection policies, many different protection policies. And now we have a new page where you can create your recovery simulation policy. So you go there. I already have a daily test run policy, which uses this type of recovery profile, and it runs on the east coast of the Google Cloud, and it wakes up and runs at 8 p.m. every day. So I scheduled it, and today is going to be another run. So what we are going to do is to create another recovery simulation policy. We can call it as a weekly run DR test. And the simulation frequency type is weekly. You can have monthly and so on. And make sure that you select the right timing, so Monday, Sunday, or whatever timing that you want to really select. And the frequency time, select at what time it's going to run, and recovery profile. This is also very important. You can have a system predefined recovery profile. And typically, this system predefined profile is going to use your classic GCP instances. You could have a different ones, and we will be adding more and more recovery profile capabilities to adjust your system simulation. And you can have a preemptible recovery profile where Appranix will use preemptible instances for your recovery. So in this particular case, let's select preemptible recovery profile because I want to cut down the cost of these simulations. And I select the regions where my application needs to be tested. So you could select East or whatever the region that you have configured the replication to replicate to are protected in the second region. And also to make sure that a successful protection or a partially successful protection as well. Once you do that, you select the number of timeline failures that the system can take it. So let's say for some reason, if it picks up the first timeline item, and if it fails for some reason, it will automatically pick up the next one. Maybe because it's protecting this at the moment, based on the protection policy, the protection might be going on, or even the retention life cycle of those instances might be different. So in some cases, it might fail, in which case you tell Appranix to automatically move on to the next one and the next one and so on. And you also mentioned, after what time you want to get rid of this environment, reset that environment, meaning that delete all the instances that were created for this simulation and reduce my cost. So that is all you have to do. It is a simulation policy that you set once for your assembly and forget it. Right? You save it, and it will take care of it at that particular point in time. May 2nd, 9 p.m. EDT is when the recovery policy will run, and then your results will be available. And I have already scheduled a daily test run, which ran yesterday. So if you go into the timeline where the recovered items are, you can see a number of recovered instances. In space, you look at yesterday's run, and if you look at the recovery details, I can see daily test run recovery happened yesterday, and the reset also completed. So at 8 o'clock, it took about 7 minutes. If you go into what really happened, you can see at 8 o'clock Eastern yesterday evening, the recovery started. It completed all the recovery of the entire environment that I just showed for this OpenEMR application. And after that, it started deleting after 1 hour or so. So you can see the deletion happened roughly after 1 hour, and the entire environment has been reset, and your recovery simulation is complete. So as you can see, it is simply a policy that you have to just key in, depending on your application types, depending on your assembly type, and Apprentice will automatically take care of it for you. You don't have to do anything. So all those complex um, requirements, if you think about it, all of these are automatically taken care of with a single simple policy. Thank you.